with Starfleet Academy drawing so much attention from its trailer and then its poster and then its terrible a couple minute intro, maybe you forgot what real Star Trek felt like. I think a lot of us have, and we all watch the old stuff. This is the thing that people don't realize. What Paramount really makes money on is not this new stuff, but getting people to just rewatch the old stuff over and over again. They're a cash cow even still. Everybody watches the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and to some extent Enterprise over and over and over again on Paramount Plus, and that's what is their bread and butter. These new shows keep the brand going, and that's what it's supposed to be doing. And I've covered how the brand's been hurt recently on the channel, but I do want to talk about just something positive. There are some people who still get Star Trek out there, who know how to write Star Trek, who really respect the lore, and that's exactly what Greg Cox does with his novels. And so I actually reviewed the novel for you guys today, the one that just came out that I wish was selling a little better, but unfortunately this is an environment where Star Trek is in a different spot. And this is exactly why people like him should be hired to write Star Trek. People like me too, instead of the people they have currently operating at the show. So let's get into this. Please hit the like, subscribe button. Join us here as we talk about all things Trek news and more. I appreciate you guys for indulging me doing a positive video. I'm a Star Trek writer. Star Trek writer. I'm not. I'm a science fiction writer myself, and this is my book series, The Stars Entwined. A bunch of people have bought this over the last couple of days based on my videos. I really appreciate you guys reading. If you like my thoughts on storytelling and the like, you're probably going to enjoy my book. If you like the Enterprise incident where Kirk and Spock were infiltrating the Romulan commander's vessel, definitely drew heavy inspiration from that. If you like Babylon 5 especially, you guys are Babylon 5 fans? I know this is a Trek-only channel, but Babylon 5 technically was pitched as a Star Trek to begin with. That's another story. Maybe I should do a video on that too. But this is a book series I think you'll enjoy. It's in the description below, available on ebook, print, and audio. Thank you guys for being here. I'm also going to put Greg Cox's book in the description below, Identity Theft. It just came out here because there's not a lot of people promoting this right now. And so I do want to get this out here. So I made a review on my Fandom Pulse Substack about this book, wrote it up this morning, and let's cover this. So Greg Cox returns to Star Trek with Identity Theft, a novel that does what he does best, which is take an obscure concept from a classic episode and then expand it into a full story, weave it seamlessly into established continuity. This time, Cox revisits the body swap technology from Turnabout Intruder, the final episode of the original series, and builds a tense thriller around Pavel Chekhov, one of the franchise's most underutilized characters. Yes, the result is a book that rewards longtime fans with a deep lore connections while delivering a solid adventure that avoids formulaic space battles, climax so common in Star Trek novels. If you've read Star Trek novels, tell me what percentage of them are like, the Klingons actually are here and they're going to fire upon us. And they have a big battle scene at the end. Like it's like 90% of Star Trek. You can copy paste that into Deep Space Nine with Cardassians as well. It's the same thing. It's painful. But Cox didn't do this. And I was very, very happy not to have that here. His respect for continuity and his pitch of perfect characterization make Identity Theft a worthwhile addition to literary canon. So this opens in 2269 during the original 5-year mission with a brief prologue establishing a geopolitical situation with the planet Voyager. Voyager? Hope I got that right. Captain Kirk and his Enterprise crew help broker a peace between warring factions, a diplomatic success that becomes a cornerstone of the planet's future stability. The novel then jumps forward to 20 years to 2289, placing the story between Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. When I mentioned this book the first time, I got a lot of comments like, why is there like original Enterprise and then they're in their Wrath of Khan uniforms? That doesn't make sense. And it's intentional because there is the time skip. It does there is like this like visceral autistic like this is wrong like look to it that I don't know if it's good for that, but it is intentional because it does actually illustrate the story, which is something a lot of book covers don't do these days, which is interesting too. The Enterprise A returns to Voyager to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Peace Accords. Now it's interesting as the back of the book actually hails that this is a 60th anniversary of Star Trek product. So it's neat that he wove anniversary into that. If that was intentional, I don't know. Maybe he could tell us if he watches this video. Security Chief Pavel Chekhov, who was a young ensign during the original mission, remembers the negotiations. He's suspected they were too easy, and he's right. A conspiracy to sabotage the peace process unfolds when Chekhov is kidnapped. His consciousness is swapped with an alien assassin using the technology that derived from the Turnabout The assassin, now inhabiting Chekhov's body, boards the Enterprise, intending to assassinate a key political figure and reignite the war. Chekhov, trapped in an alien body, must navigate bureaucracy, evade security forces, find a way back to his ship before his assassination succeeds. The conspiracy is backed by Klingon operatives who want to destabilize the region and prevent Federation expansion. I was worried that they would have that battle scene at the end when I saw this, so I'm very happy that it went a different way. So Chekhov's journey becomes a race against time as he struggles to prove his identity, warn the Enterprise to stop the plot, all while an assassin uses his knowledge of Starfleet procedures to maintain the deception. So here's my deal, and there's some mild spoilers of this. I mean, so I'm just going to say the obvious point. Obviously, Chekhov becomes Chekhov again because we have a Star Trek 6 after this. So, spoilers, he's going to win, right? And so I'll get into this, but I'll try not to make it unenjoyable for people who do want to read this as I go through this. So Cox nails Pavel Chekhov. His characterization is spot on, capturing his idiosyncrasies that made the character memorable, just like all of the great works in Russian literary history. That was a terrible voiceover, wasn't it? Do not hire me as an actor. His pride in Mother Russia, his earnestness, and his competence as a Starfleet officer. He doesn't just write Chekhov as a generic protagonist, he writes Chekhov, complete with humor, personality quirks, that Walter Koenig brought to the role. His novel also references Chekhov's history in ways that enrich the story. Cox mentions the HMS Bounty from Star Trek IV, his brain surgery in that film, and the Seti eel Khan placed in his ear during Wrath of Khan. They're not throwaway references, they inform his perspective on the current predicament, which is really, really well done. He's dealt with mind control and brain trauma before, now he's facing a body swapped and somebody actually manipulating his body with a brain sort of thing, right? So the continuity matters, and Cox uses it to deepen the character rather than name drop fan service. Really good stuff. The novel structure of opening in the original series era and then jumping to the movie era is effective. He's explored multiple timelines in previous Star Trek novels. His last one last year, for example, did that. He does this one with more focus. The movie era is between 5 and 6. It's really unexplored a lot in Star Trek literature, and Cox takes advantage of that gap to tell a story that fits seamlessly into continuity. The references to Admiral Cartwright and the foreshadowing events leading into Star Trek 6 are really well done, adding for layers of readers familiar with the films. So his decision to make a Chekhov-centric novel is a fun choice too, because how many of those do we have? We don't have a lot of Chekhov stories, right? Most Star Trek novels, of course, focus on Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. The supporting cast is relegated to minor roles. Identity theft gives Chekhov the spotlight. Point of view structure makes a story feel fresh. We get extended time with a character who rarely receives this kind of development in a series or films. There is a romance subplot with a new character named Nurse Tovar, and it's a welcome addition. Chekhov had a brief romance in the third season episode, The Way to Eden, which was a couple episodes before Turnabout Intruder, so it's a nice sort of build there. The character was never given much romantic development across the series or movies. Tovar is a well-written, competent, and her relationship with Chekhov feels organic rather than forced. It's a small element, but it adds emotional stakes and gives Chekhov something personal to fight for beyond duty. He also deserves credit for avoiding that formula, like the space battles, like I talked about. This doesn't do that. And so there's tension and action at the end. It's not the standard photon torpedoes, shields down to 40% type of finale. The peace conference proceeds, a conspiracy is exposed, and again, foreshadowing Star Trek VI, through investigation rather than combat, and the resolution feels earned rather than explosive. The subplot involving Sulu, the fake Chekhov, and McCoy crashing a shuttle on a planet, talked about geological instability, is classic Trek, bringing exploratory science fiction with real stakes. It actually had a real science fiction concept to it, and that's the kind of scenario that would have made for a good episode, and he handles it well. The fake Chekhov's attempts to maintain his cover while dealing with the crisis adds tension, and his McCoy's suspicions create dramatic irony. It's good stuff. So here's the part that doesn't work for me. The biggest weakness to me is pacing. Identity theft is drawn out for what it is. The premise is solid, but the execution stretches a relatively straightforward story across too many pages. Chekhov's story, journey back to the Enterprise, involves bureaucratic obstacles, chases, attempts to prove his identity, and these sequences become a little bit repetitive. We know Chekhov's going to succeed. Like I said, he appears in Star Trek VI. His survival and return are guaranteed. That foregone conclusion saps some of the tension from the narrative. That's just because of the concept. Cox's previous novel juggled 3 timelines with distinct storylines that converge satisfyingly. By contrast, Identity Theft has one main plot of Chekhov trying to get back to the Enterprise while his imposter hopes the Enterprise gets to his homeworld in time, and it doesn't have enough complexity to sustain the length. I think the book could have been 50 to 75 pages shorter without losing anything essential. And that's just modern storytelling for what they want and how many words they want out of things. If you go back to the classic Star Trek novels, they're often between 250, 270 pages. This one clocks in around 330. So you kind of see how that goes. And I kind of like those 250 to 270 page books better. Is anybody with me on that? Tightening the middle section, I think, would have improved pacing significantly. The body swap premise, too, is something I don't like. I mentioned that in my video about Turnabout Intruder the other day. The stories often feel gimmicky, and Turnabout Intruder is one of the weaker original series episodes. Cox does better with the concept in this novel form, though. In the internal dialogue, the dual perspectives work better on page than on screen. The premise still carries baggage. Readers who dislike body swap stories probably won't be won over, even with competent execution. The assassin inhabiting Chekhov's body is a functional but not particularly memorable as a villain. His motivations are clear. He's a true believer in his faction's cause. He sees the Federation as an existential threat, but he doesn't have much personality beyond that. The Klingon conspiracy backing him is a standard Star Trek fare, and while it ties into broader political tensions leading to Star Trek VI, it doesn't offer much new or surprising. So that's that. So, of course, we did have the connection, but that's my kind of nitpick, right? Overall, it's really, really good. It's a solid Star Trek novel that does what Greg Cox does best: respect the established continuity, developed underutilized characters, and tell the stories for what it feels like a natural extensions of the series. A characterization of Chekhov is excellent, the lore and integration is seamless, and the decision to avoid formulaic space battles makes me very happy inside. So, the pacing issues are, and foregone conclusion, do keep it from being a top-tier Trek novel, but it's still a worthwhile read for fans who appreciate a deep continuity and character-focused storytelling. Cox's attention to detail, with references to previous episodes and films, and foreshadowing the development of Chekhov's personal life, make the book a reward for longtime fans. So that's my thoughts on this. I give it an 8 out of 10. So what I usually do, I'm usually, my rating system's pretty favorable. 7 out of 10 is like an average. So 8 out of 10 is like, okay, this is better than average. If I really loved it, I'd give it like an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. And that's kind of how I like to do things on this. And so I hope this was enjoyable for you. So you can grab this. I'm going to put this in the description below if you're interested in this right here. One of these reviews, it's got a bad review on Amazon, but it has nothing to do with his deal. I'm actually going to, don't mark this as helpful because Amazon's bad packaging is what they reviewed here, not the actual book. It does help authors a ton to review books on Amazon, so leave a nice review for them on Amazon if you would. And thank you guys for reading. We'll be back.